Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating paradox in the history of technology, and honestly, human psychology. Picture this. Way before microchips or AI, we're talking the 13th century, humanoid machines were actually walking and moving around inside grand cathedrals. But here's the crazy part. When medieval folks saw these moving, life-size mechanical saints, they didn't get that creeping dread we often feel with modern androids. No, they felt profound awe. So let's dive right in and figure out how they managed to bypass our modern fears. Why didn't medieval robots creep people out? It's a psychological mystery, right? Think about us today. We're often totally unnerved by highly realistic humanoid robots. Yet back in the Middle Ages, seeing a wooden statue of the Virgin Mary suddenly turn her head was seen as a deeply moving, spiritually uplifting miracle. To figure this out, we need to look at the psychological thresholds these ancient engineers somehow managed to cross. To get our modern dread, we have to talk about the uncanny valley. Japanese roboticist Masahiro Mori coined this term to describe that weird, uncomfortable gray area between living and artificial. It's that dip in our emotional response where a robot looks just human enough to be familiar, but mechanical enough to give us the creeps. Sigmund Freud actually touched on this too, noting how disembodied, independently moving limbs blur the line between being alive and being a lifeless object, which is inherently unsettling. So, how on earth did medieval creators build moving human replicas that completely leaped over this valley of revulsion? Section 1. The Robot Saints. Holy Skin, Hidden Gears. Okay, let's travel back to the year 1248. King Fernando III is entering the defeated city of Seville, and in his triumphal procession, he's carrying the Virgen de los Reyes. This ensemble of the Virgin and Child is likely one of the earliest surviving humanoid automata in Western Europe. The juxtaposition here is just wild. On one hand, you have a pristine, fully dressed, regal Virgin Mary statue, but hidden behind a discreet wooden door in her back, a bloodless, clock-like machine. We're talking a complex system of ratcheted wheels and axles turning leather straps that run right up into the hollow of the doll's head. By manipulating wooden tongues and releasing tension, the head could move autonomously. It's a complete technological fantasy hiding a machine right beneath the skin. And the crazy thing is, these engineers didn't just cram gears into a box. They obsessed over the anatomy. Take a look at this meticulously carved wooden torso of a medieval automaton. The artisans took incredible care in crafting these anatomical forms. They weren't just building a rigid shell, they were designing a foundation specifically meant to produce a highly convincing, lifelike movement. When we look at the limbs, you can really see how this translates into full movement. Check out these disassembled articulated wooden arms. The joint systems are incredibly complex. The wrists, the elbows, the shoulders, they all used a really sophisticated system of pins and holes, allowing for extensive rotation and flexion. These were absolutely not static mannequins. These limbs could swing freely and be arranged into an almost endless number of human poses, mimicking life with just astonishing accuracy. To pull off this divine illusion, the creators used highly specific, tactile materials to deliberately blur the line between biology and machinery. For the weight-bearing shoulder joints, heavy, durable oak to resist wear and tear. For the moving arms, they use larchwood because it's waterproof and lightweight, making it perfect for continuous performance. To simulate actual human flesh, they literally stretched white kid skin, thin lamb's hide, right across the face, torso, and arms. And for the hair, they meticulously plugged real gold threads into capillary-sized holes in the scalp using tiny wooden nails. I mean, they engineered a truly visceral biological realism.
Section 2. Engineering the Divine. Fine Technology.
Now, Christian Spain was definitely not alone in this endeavor. At the exact same time, a radically different but equally brilliant tradition of automata was thriving in the 13th century Islamic world. They had what was known as fine technology, where engineering these delicate mechanisms was an art form all its own. A towering figure here was the polymath Ismail al-Jazari. In 1206, he described an absolute marvel, the water clock of the drummers. This wasn't just a clock, it was a 7-piece musical robot band with wood-jointed male figures, complete with trumpeters and cymbal players. And the whole shebang was driven by water draining from a cistern. The water-tipped buckets turned a wheel, and through a network of pistons and cables, activated the whole band. It was a programmable automata designed to entertain royal guests with loud music every single hour. This actually perfectly highlights the huge philosophical divide between how we view robots today and how they were viewed back then. Think about modern industrial robots. They are built strictly for predictable, efficient labor. But medieval Islamic automata, they were built for unpredictable wonder. Historians call this untoward automation. They intentionally use delayed action mechanisms to create irregular, surprising movements. And this is crucial to our story. In their worldview, these capricious movements were celebrated as expressions of God's will. The machines weren't about absolute control. They were built to reflect the surprising, sophisticated ways the divine operates in the real world.
Section 3. Bypassing the uncanny, the neuroscience of wonder. So, getting back to our main question, whether it's a mechanical Virgin Mary or an Islamic musical water clock, why didn't these lifelike statues trigger that uncanny valley revulsion? Well, modern developmental neuroscience actually has the answer. It comes down to Pascal Boyer's theory of domain specificity. First off, our brains expect intuitive rules. We just know that living things move and inanimate wood does not. Second, when you break those rules, like making wood move like a human, it sets off an uncanny neurological alarm. It's basically a danger signal. But here is the cognitive cheat code. Step 3, the religious exception. Religions often demand faith in counterintuitive claims. Because the medieval audience saw these robots in a deeply religious setting, that context completely sanctioned the rule breaking. So, instead of sounding a fear alarm, the brain processed it as a miracle. It literally turned potential revulsion into spiritual excitement.
Section 4. The Theater of Mechanical Devotion.
Now, how were these robots actually used? They definitely weren't static museum pieces. They were active participants in highly theatrical rituals. And their success was measured entirely by their spiritual efficacy, basically how deeply they move the audience's souls. A great example is El Cristo de los Cascones, a 13th century deposition crucifix. It's essentially a life-sized sacred puppet. During Holy Friday liturgies, it didn't move on its own with hidden gears. Instead, visible puppeteers, priests and laypeople, would physically manipulate its articulated joints to reenact taking Christ down from the cross. And get this, the audience could see the mechanics and the puppeteers, but it didn't ruin the magic at all. It was this perfect blend of theatrical play and incredibly deep religious devotion. And this mechanical devotion wasn't strictly for public spectacle either. It was also intensely private and tactile. Take a look at this Virgin Abridera, an opening Virgin statue. These transformable statues encouraged really direct personal interaction. A devotee would physically touch the object, parting hinged panels on the Virgin's body to reveal these incredibly intricate carved interior scenes of saints' lives. This tactile participation, literally opening the statue to explore the populated inside, sparked this amazing sense of intimate revelation. It made the divine something you could literally touch, open, and explore for yourself.
All of this leads us to the core takeaway of today's explainer, brilliantly summed up by scholar Christopher Swift. He says, robots are gestures toward immortality, created in the face of the undeniable fact and experience of the ongoing decay of our fleshy bodies. These mechanical saints and musical automata, they weren't just cheap tricks to fool a gullible public. Not at all. They were profound technological performances. By building bodies out of oak, larch, leather, and brass that could move endlessly without ever getting tired, bleeding, or dying, medieval humans were using engineering as a way to resist death itself. They literally used the absolute pinnacle of their fine technology to build a bridge between the mortal and the miraculous. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to end on today. If these medieval machines once used hidden gears and golden threads to connect humanity to the divine, what do our modern, utilitarian, hyper-efficient robots reflect about our own souls today? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the mechanical wonders of the past. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.